When we speak of a gentle tale, we speak of something that doesn't shout for attention, but instead quietly invites you in, almost like a friend who reaches out a hand and says, "Come with me, there's something I'd like to show you." This is the kind of story that takes the mind to a place where imagination flows like water, and each word feels like a small step into a bigger world. You find yourself wandering through scenes that are not rushed, not overcrowded, but open enough for you to breathe in every detail. For someone learning English, this pace matters. It means you have time to listen, to understand, to let the meaning settle before the next moment arrives. The sentences are clear, the words are chosen with care, and the rhythm allows the listener to both follow and feel. It's like being guided through a quiet garden. The path is easy to walk, but still full of surprises, flowers you've never seen before, colors that catch your eye, and small creatures you notice only when you slow down enough to see them. This tale is very much like that. It balances the excitement of discovery with the comfort of familiarity. It welcomes those who are just beginning their journey in English, yet it never talks down to them. It doesn't just teach language. It shares it, offering each phrase as if it were a gift. The listener is encouraged to connect words with feelings, sounds with images, and language with meaning that is alive, not just printed on a page. The magic here lies in how the story blends imagination with lessons that are quietly woven into its fabric. You might begin listening simply for the adventure, for the characters, or for the curiosity of what will happen next. But somewhere along the way, you realize that you are also learning something about life, about people, about yourself. And the beauty of it is that the learning happens without effort. It slips in naturally, as if carried on the breeze of the storyteller's voice. This is why such a tale is perfect for beginners. It doesn't demand that you understand every single word to enjoy it. Instead, it lets you feel the meaning through the tone, the pauses, the images painted in your mind. And little by little, without even noticing it, your vocabulary grows, your ear becomes sharper, your confidence builds. The language becomes not a set of rules to memorize, but a living, breathing thing you can play with, explore, and enjoy. There is also something deeply human about how the story is told. The moments of wonder are balanced with moments of thoughtfulness. The strange and unfamiliar are balanced with the familiar and comforting. This mix makes it easier for a learner to stay engaged, because every time the mind wanders into the unknown, it is gently brought back to something it already understands. This rhythm of moving between new and known is the heartbeat of learning itself, and the story follows it perfectly. And perhaps the most important part is how it makes you feel while listening. You are not being tested. You are not being judged. You are simply being told a story, one that wants you to enjoy it, to live in it for a while, to carry a piece of it with you when it ends. That emotional connection is what makes the words stick. You remember them not because you wrote them down, but because they were part of a moment you felt. So when I speak of this as a gentle tale, I mean more than just its tone or its pace. I mean that it respects the listener. It offers its lessons with kindness, not pressure. It trusts that you will take what you need from it, and it gives you the space to do so. In this way, it becomes not just a story you listen to, but a companion on your journey, whispering softly that you are capable, that you are growing, that you belong here in this new language you are learning. That is the gift of such a story. A journey across worlds is never just about moving from one place to another. It is about stepping into realms that do not follow the rules of everyday life, where the sky might be a different color, where the ground beneath your feet feels unfamiliar, and where each horizon invites a new question. This kind of journey takes you far beyond what you can see in your daily life. It opens doors you didn't even know existed, and with each one, you're greeted by a different sight, a different sound, a different way of thinking. The beauty of it lies in how each world you enter leaves a trace on you. Some small, some profound, but each unforgettable. The path is never straight. You move through landscapes that shift with your steps, deserts that shimmer in the heat, oceans that sparkle under strange stars, gardens that bloom in colors that don't have names in your language yet. Each new place carries its own mood. Some worlds feel warm and safe, others challenge you with mysteries you don't yet understand. But that's the essence of a true journey, allowing yourself to be shaped by what you discover rather than trying to make everything fit into what you already know. Along the way, there are the characters, each one a universe of their own. They don't think like you do, they don't see like you do, and that's exactly what makes meeting them so valuable. You might find someone who lives on a mountain and believes that clouds are the dreams of the earth. Another might live by the sea and speak in rhythms that sound like the waves. Some speak little, letting silence be their language, and yet they still teach you something. Others speak endlessly, their words spilling like rivers, carrying you with them until you see the world through their eyes. The perspectives they share aren't just information, they are gifts. One character might teach you that what looks small to you can be the most important thing in someone else's life. Another might show you that what you think is obvious is, to them, a complete mystery. You begin to realize that there isn't just one way to live, one way to see, or one way to understand the world. And in that realization, your own view starts to widen. What's remarkable is that these encounters don't just teach you about others, they teach you about yourself. When someone asks you a question from a perspective you've never considered, you have to pause and think, what do I really believe? When someone challenges your way of seeing things, you might resist at first, but then you start to wonder if maybe there's truth in their words. The journey becomes as much about exploring your inner world as it is about exploring the outer ones, and it's not just about lessons. Sometimes it's simply about joy. Imagine laughing with someone whose language you barely speak, yet somehow understanding each other perfectly. Or standing in complete silence with a stranger, watching a sky you've both never seen before. These moments remind you that connection is not limited by borders or languages. It's something deeper, something that travels easily between hearts. Every meeting leaves you with a piece of the world you didn't have before. It might be a story, a song, a way of looking at the stars, or even a new word that holds a meaning your language can't quite capture. You carry these with you, and they change you in quiet ways. You begin to listen differently, to notice more, to ask better questions. By the time you have traveled through all these worlds and met all these people, you realize that you are no longer the same as when you began. The journey has woven itself into who you are. You've learned that every world, no matter how strange, has its own kind of beauty, and every person, no matter how different, carries a truth worth hearing. That is the gift of such a journey. There are certain lessons that stay with you, not because someone told you to remember them, but because you felt them in a way that made them impossible to forget. Kindness is one of those lessons. It's not about grand gestures or moments that make headlines. It's about the quiet ways we choose to make life lighter for someone else, even if just for a moment. In this story, kindness often appears without announcement, through a gentle word, a patient pause, or a willingness to listen when no one else will. It reminds us that kindness doesn't have to be planned. It can happen in the smallest choices, and those choices can ripple further than we might ever see. Curiosity comes hand in hand with kindness, because when you're curious about others, you open a door to understanding them. Here, curiosity isn't the kind that pries or intrudes. It's the kind that wonders without judgment. It's the simple act of asking, "Why do you see it that way?" Or "What makes this important to you?" It's leaning forward instead of stepping back. The story shows curiosity as a bridge, something that connects different worlds, different ways of thinking, and even different hearts. Without it, we stay in the small space we already know. With it, we travel further than we thought possible. And then there is the lesson about seeing with the heart instead of just the eyes. Our eyes show us shapes, colors, and surfaces, but they cannot always show us truth. Eyes can be distracted by what is obvious, by what is loud, by what is shining. But the heart, when we learn to see through it, understands what cannot be measured or weighed. It notices sincerity in a voice, warmth in a gesture, and meaning in a moment that might seem ordinary to someone else. This way of seeing is slower, but it's deeper. It's the kind of vision that stays with you long after the moment has passed. When you bring these three values together, kindness, curiosity, and heart seeing, they change not only the way you experience the world, but the way the world experiences you. You begin to notice things you might have overlooked before. The person standing quietly at the edge of a group, the small beauty in a forgotten corner, the unspoken feelings in someone's tone. You respond differently because you are no longer just reacting to what you see. You are engaging with what you feel. This kind of learning doesn't happen through lists of rules or pages of definitions. It happens in moments when a character offers kindness without expecting anything back, or when someone chooses to ask a question rather than make an assumption, or when a truth is recognized not by proof, but by trust. You find yourself moved by these moments not because they are dramatic, but because they are real. They remind you that these values are not things you are given. They are things you choose again and again. What's powerful is that these choices are always within reach. You don't need wealth, status, or power to be kind. You don't need a special invitation to be curious. You don't need perfect words to see with your heart. You only need the willingness to act, and when you do, the effect is not just on others, it's on yourself. Kindness softens you, curiosity expands you, seeing with the heart grounds you. The story doesn't preach these values, it lives them. It lets you witness them in action until they start to feel like second nature. Without even realizing it, you begin to carry them outside the story, into your own conversations, your own decisions, your own way of moving through the day. That's when you know the lesson has truly taken root, not when you can repeat it, but when you can live it. That is the gift of such values. There is a certain beauty in language when it is both simple and poetic. Simple because it allows the listener to follow along without stumbling over heavy or complicated words. Poetic because even in its simplicity, it carries rhythm, imagery, and a sense of music that makes the experience memorable. This is the balance that turns listening into more than just practice. It becomes a pleasure. Each sentence feels like it has been crafted to be clear enough for understanding, yet rich enough to linger in the mind long after it has been spoken. When words are chosen with such care, they create a natural flow. You don't feel like you are being taught, yet you find yourself learning effortlessly. The phrases seem to carry pictures inside them, clear enough to imagine, soft enough to feel. A single sentence can place you under a wide, starlit sky or inside a quiet room with sunlight spilling across the floor. And because the language is simple, you don't have to stop and decode it. You stay inside the moment, absorbing both meaning and mood at the same time. For someone practicing English, this is an ideal way to grow. The mind stays engaged because the words are accessible, but it is also inspired because those words are arranged in ways that sound beautiful. This combination encourages the listener to keep going, to stay curious, and to feel confident that understanding is within reach. Instead of feeling like a challenge to be endured, the story feels like a journey to be enjoyed. The poetic quality does more than make the language pretty, it makes it stick. When a line carries rhythm or gentle repetition, it settles into memory more easily. You might not remember a long technical explanation, but you will remember a phrase that made you feel something, or a description that painted a vivid picture in your mind. And once those words are remembered, they become part of your own vocabulary, ready to be used naturally when you speak. There is also a warmth in the way the language invites you in. It never shuts you out with unnecessary complexity. It doesn't try to impress you with difficulty. Instead, it welcomes you almost as if the story is saying, "Come, listen. This is for you." That feeling matters because it creates a safe space to learn. When the listener feels comfortable, they are more willing to take risks, to repeat phrases aloud, to try using new words without fear of making mistakes. Even the pauses, the pacing, and the structure of the sentences work in harmony with this style. Short, clear sentences give the mind room to breathe. Slightly longer ones, filled with gentle imagery, invite the listener to drift a little before returning to the core idea. This variation keeps the experience alive, much like a song that changes tempo but still keeps its melody. The story's language also has the power to spark the imagination. Because it is simple, it leaves space for the listener to add their own details in their mind. You're not overwhelmed with descriptions that cover every inch of a scene. Instead, you are given just enough to see it, and the rest is yours to create. This makes the story personal, as if you have walked into it and made it your own. For learners, this is not just about enjoyment, it's about effectiveness. When learning is tied to positive feelings, it lasts longer. The words you hear in a moment of connection are remembered far more deeply than those you encounter in a dry exercise. And when the language is poetic, each word carries more than just its definition. It carries an emotional weight that makes it meaningful. This is why a story told in simple yet poetic language can do what many lessons cannot. It can teach without feeling like a lesson. It can strengthen vocabulary without drills. It can improve listening skills without the pressure of constant explanation. All of this happens because the language speaks not only to the mind, but also to the heart. That is the gift of such language. Some stories hide their deepest truths in the most unassuming places. They do not stand in front of you, declaring their wisdom with grand speeches or complicated theories. Instead, they tuck those truths into the folds of a conversation, into a small event that at first seems ordinary, or into a moment that passes quietly without asking for attention. This is the beauty of a tale that blends adventure with reflection. You may come for the journey, but you leave with something far greater. The adventures themselves are charming, sometimes even playful. They might take you to unexpected places, introduce you to unusual companions, or place you in situations that make you laugh or wonder. But while your attention is caught by the movement of the story, something else is happening underneath. The dialogue, seemingly simple, carries layers of meaning that reveal themselves slowly, sometimes only after you've stepped away and thought about them. Perhaps a character says something in passing that seems lighthearted at first, but days later you realize it speaks to a much larger truth about life, love, or loss. Or maybe an adventure ends in a way that is not grand or dramatic, but leaves you with a quiet sense of understanding that you didn't expect. These moments work because they feel natural. They're not trying to teach you in a way that feels forced. They let you discover the meaning for yourself, and that makes it more personal, more lasting. It's in the contrasts that these reflections shine brightest. You can be in the middle of an exciting journey, crossing strange landscapes, meeting fascinating characters, and in the midst of it there's a pause, a short exchange of words, a question that seems simple but carries a weight you can feel even if you can't explain why. The rhythm of adventure and stillness keeps the mind engaged, but it also gives the heart a chance to listen. The simplicity of the dialogues plays an important role here. They are not weighed down with too many words, yet they hold meaning in every syllable. This makes them easy to follow for a learner, but also rewarding for anyone willing to read between the lines. The lack of complexity in the language does not mean a lack of depth. In fact, it often means the opposite. By removing unnecessary clutter, the story gives space for the essential truth to come through more clearly. There's also something comforting about how these reflections are wrapped in adventure. It means that even the heavier thoughts are balanced with moments of lightness, curiosity, and joy. You are never left in the heaviness for too long. The story knows when to carry you forward, when to lift your spirits, and when to let you drift into thought. This balance makes the journey not just educational, but healing in its own quiet way. And because the lessons are not delivered directly, they often surprise you when they appear. You might find yourself remembering a scene weeks later and realizing it has shaped the way you see something in your own life. It could be a reflection on friendship, on the value of small moments, or on the importance of looking beyond the surface. Whatever it is, it stays with you because you found it yourself within the story, as if it were a treasure you uncovered during the adventure. For someone learning English, this blend of charm and depth is especially powerful. The simple dialogues make it easy to follow along, but the reflections give the mind something rich to hold on to. You are not just practicing language, you are engaging with ideas, feelings, and truths that connect across cultures and experiences. This means that even after the story ends, your connection to it continues, both in language and in thought. That is the gift of such reflections. There are stories that keep your feet firmly on the ground, showing you the world as it is, and then there are stories that lift you gently, carrying you to places you didn't know existed. This is the kind of tale that takes hold of your imagination and whispers that it's safe to dream, that there's no harm in letting your thoughts drift far beyond the ordinary. It gives you permission to imagine things that might never happen, and yet, in the space of the story, feel as real as the air you breathe. Dreaming in this way is more than a pleasant escape, it's a way of opening the mind. You are no longer confined to what you see in front of you. Instead, you can wander across skies lit by strange constellations, walk through fields that bloom with colors you have no name for, or speak with someone whose wisdom comes from a place far different than your own. The journey feels limitless, and that is where its magic lies. Exploration naturally follows. When you are invited to dream, you are also invited to move, mentally, emotionally, sometimes even spiritually, into new spaces. These might be places filled with wonder or places that challenge your understanding. Some explorations are lighthearted, like discovering a world where everything floats. Others are more reflective, such as finding yourself in a place where silence holds more meaning than words. Each new step, whether grand or small, becomes a piece of the larger adventure, and with each one you carry something back to your own world. Thinking beyond the ordinary is perhaps the most lasting gift of this kind of storytelling. It encourages you to question what you've always assumed. Why must something be done only one way? Why should the limits you've known all your life remain unchallenged? The story nudges you to look for new answers, to see familiar things from unfamiliar angles, to imagine possibilities that don't yet exist. In doing so, it expands the way you see not only the story's world, but your own. What makes this experience so powerful is that it never forces you to think a certain way. The invitation is gentle, almost unnoticed at first. You follow the characters because you're curious, you linger in the worlds because they fascinate you, and somewhere along the way, you realize you've been thinking differently. It's like waking from a dream with an idea you didn't have before, something you want to carry into your waking life. For those learning English, this invitation is even more valuable. When you are drawn into dreams and explorations, you forget for a moment that you are practicing a language. You are simply living in the world of the story. The new words and phrases you hear become connected to images, feelings, and ideas, making them easier to remember. You're not just learning how to speak, you're learning how to express thoughts that might never have crossed your mind before. The ordinary has its place in life, but it's the extraordinary that often shapes us the most. Stepping beyond the familiar allows us to see more clearly when we return. After all, once you have walked on worlds where the rules are different, you begin to notice the invisible rules in your own. And sometimes you find the courage to change them. This is what a good story can do. It can quietly lift the edges of the world you know and let you peek at what lies beyond. It tells you that you can go there in your mind anytime you wish, and that doing so is not a waste, but a way of growing. Even when the story ends, the dreams and the thoughts it sparked remain, waiting for you to follow them further. That is the gift of such an invitation. And so, this journey of gentle words, vivid worlds, and quiet truths comes to a close, leaving its lessons softly in our hearts. May the kindness, curiosity, and wonder it sparked continue to guide the way you see and speak in every moment. Carry these dreams with you, and let them remind you that learning is not just practice, it is a way of living.